Several years ago, I adopted a young man out of foster care system. Um, I had put a lot of time and thought into such an important decision in my life as a single woman, a teacher, an educator who loved kids, but without children of my own. I made the decision to adopt as a single parent. And after coming to that decision and mentoring a young man and eventually fostering him, my son and I adopted one another, as he liked to say, about a year and a half after our first meeting. It was challenging. Adoption was everything and more than I thought it would be. I was creating a family, and this was a young man who had tried at that effort so many times. He'd been fostered and adopted, abandoned in childhood, so many traumatic struggles. And yet we were together and creating family, a mom and a son. And it was an incredibly hard but incredibly wonderful time of my life. And I was proud of us both for the work we put in. And as time would go on, not even a year beyond that adoption date in the courthouse, getting to know one another and forming a bond, little did we know how strong that bond was going to have to be when my then 13-year-old son was diagnosed with bone cancer. And immediately, I recall feeling the cliche, my world has turned upside down. How would I walk this young man through all the things that would go with cancer, surgeries and chemo, and eventually he would have an amputation of one of his legs. And this was a young man who had already been through so much before our adoption of childhood trauma and struggle. He could barely wear a blood pressure cuff. And now to think through all those things just mentioned was hard for me to imagine. I didn't even know that he knew what cancer fully was. But we did what we needed to do and took those next steps. And for the next 4 years, a bond that we formed from adoption, barely getting to know one another and then being thrust into the world of cancer and hospitals. We truly adopted one another and then grew as family together. And the bond strangely became so much stronger by way of that cancer journey and those travels we made to hospitals. And I can recall some things that make me smile now, thinking about, and my son smiled too, when people would say, "We thought you all were birth child and birth mother. You look so much alike." People naturally thought we looked alike, we acted a good bit alike, and it was always something that made us smile to think that. My son, for 4 years, would struggle with osteosarcoma, and then sadly he died at the end of about a 4.5-year fight. And my world again turned upside down. And I continue to this day, years later, to try to find some way to build off this amazing legacy, this amazing young man who overcame more obstacles in his young life than movies are made about. And the things we went through, just the two of us, as a tiny, powerful family of two, we called each other. How do I reckon with all of that now? How do I put it together? How do I walk through my grief? And the only way I've been able to try to find, or the only way I've been able to kind of find any success or meaning with that, is to carry him with me and to carry that entire adoption experience, which was still, as I told him, in the last months of his life and even before, the most important thing I've ever done with my life. And I still believe that to this day. We found one another somehow, and we made a family for a far too short of time. But I will continue and hope to continue in all my sadness and grief to carry his legacy forward, our story, his story, and certainly the wonders of adoption and the beauty of it. Forming a family again was the most important thing I've done with my life, and I'll forever miss him, but I'll forever be proud of that.